Scarl from Studio in Car. It's episode 3 of the van and it is a massive one, so strap in. A lot's gone on. Right, so first things first, there's a load of footage missing from this step because we've done all the fabrication, we've done all the floor, everything, but we had to go dark because we only get a limited amount of time to work on our own stuff, and shooting it was just second priority, unfortunately. So I have got footage of things, but not complete footage that, you know, I'll have to, there's no speaking over the footage, it's just we shot it as we could. So I'm going to have to speak over some of it, which is something that I haven't done in the past. So yeah, you know, I can talk enough, can't I? So, you know, a lot of time has gone by and this project has become quite complex in shooting it for you because I'm trying to keep it, this series specifically about the van, I'm trying to keep it relative to the van. So what we've done in the van as a project for ourselves, rather than things like the three-way comparisons or the Sony 8-channel amp test and things like that. I'm trying to keep it relevant to the van. So in this one we'll discuss its fabrication, we'll discuss the floor, we'll discuss how the van is used, because it's used by me primarily, and then it's used to ship wood around and things like that, and move sort of hi-fi systems to people's homes and things like that. For some context, if you haven't watched episode 1 and episode 2, here's a quick recap of what was done and how we got the van. From episode 2, where you saw the sort of rear van lining and stuff, which is kind of standard stuff that we do for clients and that, we kept everything sort of silver and cream, like a OEM feeling. I didn't want it to, I wasn't trying to make it modern or anything, sort of, I wasn't trying to make it anything it's not. I want to kind of keep the van's originality, a real simple outside, a real simple inside. The stereo is a whole other story, that just went completely turbo, but I suppose it was gonna. I wanted a functional OEM van, I wanted one slightly older, rather than the sort of new stuff that we build all the time. They're lovely, they're gorgeous things, but I wanted to see how livable we could make an older van, you know, because this thing's built from a functional standpoint. You know, my sort of style aside and the way I wanted it to sort of look aside, it's got muddy bikes that get chucked into it all the time. The bike in there at the moment is clean, but I assure you yesterday it was completely trashed. So you'll see, you know, it gets used, and that's how the whole thing was built. It's built from a completely functional standpoint, hence the runners, hence the anchor points on the floor, the anchor points on the side of the van, the toolbox that's in there, the seats that are in there are fixed, and they're fixed in a particular place so that other things can fit in there, mostly bikes, and not get trashed. I wanted OEM colour roof lining. I wanted the roof linings to be new, but not to be sort of Alcantara or anything that I'd be super pissed about if it got damaged, you know. So yeah, so we went for a sort of an original sort of I want to say sort of silver cream roof lining fabric. We've left the pillars for now. They'll be trimmed at some point. They'll probably be trimmed the same as the builds. The builds you might see and think, Jesus Christ, why have you trimmed them in that colour? It is simply down to the fact that if we did them in black or we did them in grey, they would stand out like a sore thumb. And I know at first glance they stand out like a sore thumb because they're bright. They're quite sort of a silvery cream, similar to the roof lining. After time, it works. It blends into the rest of the trim. Bearing in mind that we're not really finished with it yet. There's other things that we need to trim, other things that we need to clean up. The bloody door cards need cleaning, things like that, you know. So yeah, all sort of original trims. Clean down the sun visors, install them, you know, over the sound deadening and insulation that we've done. Alcantara on the bars, because the bars are less likely to get damaged. Plus, if we use a foam backed or a scrimmed roof lining on them bars, they just never sit back in properly. The amount of T5s, T6s, things like that you see where them bars that go between the roof lines are just popped off, it's because people have either trimmed the panels and they're too thick, or they've trimmed the bars and they're too thick. It's just it's not seam allowance, sorry, it's just tolerance for the thickness of the fabric, basically. Yeah, so that was done. So that meant that the sides, the side trims were done, the deadening was done, the roof lining was done, looms were sent over the roof for things like rear speakers, things like extra lights in the back, things like that we just haven't really done yet. And then it was onto the floor. Now the floor had to be quite specific. I wanted it done in quite a specific way. So the rear seats were fitted by Action Van just over the road from us, because we didn't have the sort of angle iron and stuff to make the seat frame. That wasn't too long ago, that was only a couple of months ago. And so yeah, so those seats are in there. Yeah, I've got 2 kids and my missus, and we go to sort of Newquay each year, and we travel about a little bit, and it's just a nice thing to have for that. So it needed to have seats. So they're in there, they're fixed, they're sort of integrated seats with seat belts, so I didn't need any extra anchor points, so I could put them wherever I wanted them. I've put them relatively close to the front seats and off to one side, as you can see. And then we built, me and Jamie and Stu, actually, all 3 of us I think me and Jamie built birch ply floor, bolted that down, and then Stuart worked on cutting out the carpet, which you can see here. I have no footage of the birch ply floor being worked, but I think I've got some of it actually on the floor. And then we fitted rails all the way down on one side, and then halfway down on the right hand side, and bolted them through the chassis so that I can use sort of ratchet straps and straps to hold bikes down and hold parts down, things like suitcases or toolboxes or whatever. It's a very functional build process, and that kind of, you know, we did the sort of straps and everything on the rear panel as well, on the rear roof lining, and that kind of marks the end for that, for the rear. Really, there's not really much more we need to do. It may be nice to put some windows in, maybe the sliding door or something like that, but I'm really at odds with affecting the commercial panel van looks of it. I really love the way that it just looks like a completely bland sort of panel van from the outside. Volkswagens need very little modification. Clear glass, silver wheels, slightly low, leave them alone. That's it. You know, maybe a new OEM exhaust, which is something that Ollie did for me at Mill Road Motors. So, you know, that's been done as well. All sorts of stuff. He's done a ton of stuff because it just bloody stopped working, so it needed a load of engine work, so it was away for ages. Anyway, so that's the rear end finished. The stereo. So I wanted to keep the stereo real simple. I wanted some form of CarPlay in there, although I didn't want anything too modern in there. I didn't want it to look like you know, start to look like a retro spaceship. That's not what I was after. So we put the 8150 in there to start with, and I just did that to get CarPlay because I had a long drive, so I had to go to Sheffield and work on a client's project up there. So I wanted CarPlay and just something simple to listen to, plug my phone and charge it, you know, all the things that you want an aftermarket unit for. Didn't like it. I just hated it sticking out the dash. Those units are great, but they're great in the correct place. They're horrible in a T4, in my opinion. They're just sticking out from the dash. So I asked Stuart to modify the dash so we could put a double din in there. That's another little hint that came from Ollie at Mill Road. He modified his T4 dash so it can just accept, you pretty much slot in a double din, and that's what we did. You know, Stuart did that, fitted a 5650. We didn't fit a 6050 simply for the fact that we've just got them new in stock, and we just didn't want to remove from the stock when we had a 5650 in there, and I'm happy with the way it sounds. I'm not a big wireless CarPlay guy. I'm not that bothered about it. I lose my phone too much to add wireless CarPlay to that mix, you know, it'll just confuse me. So I just plug it in and I know where my phone is and I'm happy. I'm a basic guy like that. And a wired connection for me is just keeps me happy. So yeah, it's just got the 5650 in there. So that's the head unit. Deals with all CarPlay. That hands off now to a an audio control DM810, which is the DSP that's in there. I wanted a simple DSP because I don't want to do crazy tuning. I just want to, or I didn't want to initially. I just wanted time alignment in there. That's all really, and levels, just adjustable levels for an active 3-way front end. Real simple, real basic. Nice DSP to be fair. That hands off to Sony's XM8ES, which is an 8-channel Sony amplifier, which is doing a mega job of dealing with the JL twin W8, so they're CP208. Pretty sure it's a CP208 twin W3 8-inch woofers. In a prefab box, which are in front of the rear seats. They're ratchet strapped to the metal frame on the rear seats, the same as the toolboxes at the back. And it works really well. I'm quite happy with it, to be fair. It just saves us having to build some mental custom box. Or I did want to put an IB18, which I've got upstairs, a Phi IB18 in the floor, and just cut a, you know, basically a section out of the floor and then create a box with an periodic membrane underneath it, or some form of just weatherproof membrane to make it true IB. But I want the floor in there, the bikes in there, the mud, the cone. I didn't know if I could keep it clean, you know, so I sacked that idea off. But we did have in there the Dynaudio Ep3 342 3-way sets, so 6.5, the MD142, the 4-inch dome, and the MD102 tweeter in them. We built builds for them, but what Jamie did while he was building them, we kind of built them together, but the design was modular. Each build we made to effectively a generic measurement, a measurement that was larger than that of, say, the largest 6.5 we have, which is the Dynaudio MW162, I think it is, which is like, measures about 7 inches, which is larger than most car audio 6.5-inch mid-bass drivers. So we made it for that, and then we made it deep enough to make adaptation rings for other speakers to go inside. And you can see that on the 3-way comparison videos where I change out, or me and Stu change out, the Dynaudio mid-bass for the Sony mid-bass, and you can see the adapters that we use and everything. So it's quite a modular design. It's wicked. So we created the door top builds, which, you know, don't get me wrong, if you sit anything and wow, Jesus, they look horrible, you know, I'm not a huge fan of the way things like that look. I'm really not, but we have to do it. They have to be in a particular location, you know. And what can we do? What else can we do? Can't just hang them in thin air. They have to be in that location in order to sound good. So we created a mid and tweeter baffle that sits on the top of the door card, as you can see, which uses a larger baffle. So the same principles again. We can step down with a baffle for any other mid-range. Me and Stu changed that, you know. It's this, if this video comes out first, this is a little bit of a teaser for that, but me and Stu changed that Dynaudio full 3-way setup to the Sony full 3-way setup this Thursday just gone in 6.5 minutes. 6.5 minutes for a full 3-way swap over. It just took no time at all, and the design just works so well. And it's all just based on adaptation rings, which are effectively pressure plates, like a head gasket. They compress together, so you screw the speaker to the original baffle, but you put a spacer between it to locate that speaker, and it just works really well. And it just means that I can change 3-ways every day for the rest of my life if I want to, which just makes me really happy. And we can keep the environment the same, the fan stays the same, the amp can stay the same, the head unit can stay the same, until such a point where we want to make another fundamental change, and then we stick to all the rest of the stereo being the same, which means we can really isolate the upgrades from particular pieces of kit, which I'm just really happy with. So this is it in its like daily setup. Okay, so, oh hello, there's someone in there. I did not realise that. But yeah, this is it in its daily setup. I've not tidied it up, it's just this is how it gets used. It pretty much always has a bike in the back, whether it's coming to work with me to be fixed or mucked around with, or whether it's going to a trail centre or wherever, you know. it'll be carrying something round. And then we've got up top there, these panels were trimmed. I think I was probably going to put some speakers in this just for when we go away. Sometimes we end up sat here on this for about an hour and a half or something, just while we get over the beach and the sand, and you know, hanging up like wetsuits and things like that. It's just quite a specific thing that doesn't happen all the time, but you know, it's worthwhile. You know, and then it's just carries like, you know, hose pipes, pumps. That there's a little water bund which does the that thing there is a jet wash, like a 12-volt jet wash, and then you've got your toolbox in there, which is just full of sort of bike bits and things like that. Really, just I've put microfibers in the bottom of all the drawers to stop them from bashing around. And then you can see the sort of the floor railings that are used to lock the bike down. And there's another bike that goes across here diagonally, Rich's bike usually, and that can be pinned down as well. That's why there's rails over there. So yeah, you can see all the sort of OEM fabric on the roof lining and stuff, and just designed in a way that it can get a little bit beaten up but not be worried about it, not worried about where you park it, not worried about people getting in and out of it with dirty shoes and stuff, you know. Just something, a chill bus is what it is. One thing we have to do is probably move this amp, because it's right in the sort of throughway and it keeps getting kids standing on it, little pests. So yeah, old van, good bones. I love it. Jamie doesn't like it at all. Stu's in the middle. Matt's not made any sort of I think he'd have it, you know. Anyway, I'm Carl. It's Saturday and the sun is flying, so I'm gonna go. Take it easy, all right?